Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are in the world. Appreciate you taking the time out of your Fridays to come and hear us talk about the future of commercial insights, a presentation that is part of our Buynomics webinar series. So we run these every 3 weeks or so, where we look at particular topics across all aspects of revenue management, pricing, promotional products, any of the 4 Ps, and we give our thoughts on how companies across a variety of different industries can look to accelerate their knowledge and their capabilities in this area. And the one we're focusing on today is leveraging virtual customer technology. Now, if you go to the next slide, please, Ingo. So in terms of who we are, just a very quick introduction for some of you who are hearing us for the first time. Presenting the majority of today you'll be hearing from Dr. Ingo Reinhardt, who's the co-founder of Buynomics, who has 12 years experience in pricing with consultancies like Simon Kucher. He's the person that developed the Buynomics virtual customers method. So you'll be hearing it directly from the creator. So Ingo will be taking you through that today, and supporting Ingo on hosting duties was myself, so David Halls. I'm sales director at Buynomics, and my history is working in data and analytics roles, a variety of companies, and prior to joining Buynomics, and about 13 or so years in CPG data and insights. So just before we get into the key content of today's conversation, which is the virtual customers technology, we'll be giving you just a very quick introduction to who we are. So some of you on the call may not have come across Buynomics before. So I've already introduced Ingo. Ingo, in partnership with another one of our colleagues, Sebastian, founded Buynomics back in 2018. Basically coming from the consultancy background and working in pricing, understanding that there were some opportunities to improve how companies across a variety of different industries were making price, promo, product, and assortment decisions. And essentially, Buynomics is set out to revolutionize how people are making these decisions. And one of these areas is review this virtual customers method, which is a machine learning type method, which helps make decisions more accurately and faster. And also combines a holistic portfolio optimization rather than just looking at pricing or promotion in isolation. And we're providing this on a global level, so across many key markets and in various industries as well. So for example, FMCG, software, telco, pharma, and many more. So without further ado, I will pass over to Ingo, but we'll call out if there is any questions you've got regarding the Buynomics product in any way. Please feel free to reach out to me directly by email or connect with me or Ingo via LinkedIn, and we'll be happy to discuss exactly how Buynomics can help you step change your revenue management capabilities. So hand over to Ingo.
Thanks, David. And I hope my equipment is working. We moved actually to a new office, much bigger, nicer than the old one, 0.5 kilometer, and got a proper microphone here. Hope it all works, light, everything.
We can hear you okay.
I hope,
We can hear you fine.
Let me know if anything isn't working, but I think this helps us also provide a better quality, better audio, better visuals. Yeah, so first of all, thanks also from my side for taking the time to participate in this webinar. I think why we set it up is our last webinar was more on established methods. We looked at, for example, price elasticities, which we will also take here as a starting point. And we discussed why we think it's not fit for the future anymore. It's for various reasons that we won't go into in detail. But that essentially was a starting point, and we touched a little bit at the end on the method that we I would say fundamentally developed, the virtual shopper or virtual customers. And we got a number of requests that asked if we can go into some details on the method, and I think that for us that made sense. So that's why, in extension to the previous webinar, we're today talking about the virtual customer methods, because we won't go, the aim today is to provide a good overview. We won't go into the full details. If you're more interested, then we're very happy to follow up and discuss the details of the methods and potential applications. So let's jump into it, the topic. What are the key challenges that we're facing in commercial management in a broader sense, but particularly also in pricing, revenue management, and all of these topics, sales, is that we are faced with a broader offer, and we want to understand if our prices are correct, how to change prices, increase prices, for example, because cost change, I think that's a hot topic for many at the moment. How to best work with promotions, how to optimize the own product portfolio. Would it make sense to remove certain pack sizes, for example, or add additional ones? These are all important questions, where to position products in a store, not just offline, but also online. And as David said, we are working across a broad range of industries. These are questions that are not, of course, limited to retailer as on the picture here, but you have these everywhere, and there are many particularities. In B2B, you're faced with customer-specific offers and prices. In many industries where you have a repeat business, you want to understand not just the revenue in the first year, but of course the lifetime value of your customers and how that interacts with pricing, discounts, and everything else. So we're all of us in the broader commercial management field are faced with a very complex challenge. And what we're seeing, or when we take this challenge and try to understand it, go from reality more to a model, what essentially is going on is that, and there we're actually across industries structurally very, very similar. We always look at certain products. These products have prices, they differ in their properties. Some in automotive maybe have a larger, stronger engine. Some have brands that are more attractive to some customer segments. So products differ in key attributes that are important to customers, and based on these attributes and the prices, customers make purchasing decisions, highlighted here in the middle. So some of these customers buy, as is indicated by their color, the product 1, some product 2, some product 3, some don't buy anything at all. And when we, for example, change prices, we see that we get demand functions, so we know how much we sell at each given price. And when we know how much we sell, we of course also know revenue, profit. We also can know, not shown here, a customer lifetime value and everything else that's important in the pricing field. These are just a selection of KPIs that are relevant. I think in one of the following, maybe even the next webinars, we will take a more structured and broader look at KPIs that are relevant in the pricing or commercial excellence field. So this is the situation we're faced with. And just to touch very briefly on that, because we looked at this in detail in the previous webinar, the tools that are available, and the price elasticity here is just one representative of it, but I think it's the most prominent that's been used in the pricing field, is a very, very strong simplification of what's going on in reality. So the idea is of a price elasticity. You want to understand how customers react to price changes, and essentially it's just the relation of price change versus volume change. So price elasticity of 2, for example, means that when you increase, or -2, when you increase the price by 1%, you will lose 2% of sales. And this is something very simple to work with. I think it's appropriate for back of the envelope calculations, or for, I don't know, recreational pricing on the weekend, if that's your thing. But it's massively too inaccurate for real decisions when millions are on the table. and you need to have the proper precision, because there are many problems with the price elasticity. In reality, it changes significantly when you change the price. So price elasticity at a price of 100 is very different for the same product than at 110 or 105. It might easily switch or move from -2 to -3 or -4. And it also is strongly affected by other products. If a competitor changes price, your price elasticity changes. So it's a very inaccurate measure. And I think from our experience, and I'm sure that many of you have also seen some of these challenges, there are many problems with the established tool set. Many of these analysis, when you want to understand price elasticities, takes a long time. It's really difficult to align price elasticities, for example, or many other insights with each other. So looking at promotions in relation to portfolio changes, for example, is typically very difficult. And what is needed is really an integrated framework or method that's capable of bringing all the key dimensions of commercial management together in one framework. And I think we found just this framework, and that's the virtual shopper that we're talking about today. Getting started, I think the starting point of makes always, I think for us, one of the fundamental insights for starting is, and I think it's difficult to say it better than Sherlock Holmes said it when he said it, is that while the individual man is an insoluble puzzle, in the aggregate he becomes a mathematical certainty. And I think that's an important insight and starting point also for what we are doing. So it's really difficult to predict what a single person will do. I don't know what I will eat for lunch tomorrow or for dinner tonight, but when you look at a large number of people, the share of these people who will buy a certain product when they go into the store is very, very well predictable, that we've seen across a very large number of cases now. And this is the starting point. So human behavior, not on an individual level, but in the aggregate, when we look at large customer groups, and in many cases with large companies who have sales in the millions or in many thousands, the outcomes are very well predictable. And we now have, and I think why isn't this around already for a long time? Because I think the technology hasn't been available, because when you look at individual customer decisions, you need large computing power, you need proper methods that haven't been around for very long. And I think now the time is right to go the extra step and move from simplistic methods like a price elasticity to proper methods like the one we're calling here virtual shoppers. And the idea is actually very simple. So we try to be as close to the human behavior as possible. So we have our virtual shoppers essentially consisting of two elements. One is a model that uses utilities, willingness to pay for certain attributes. So how much is the customer willing to pay for a single pack versus a double pack, or how much is the customer willing to pay for one brand versus the other brand, given everything else is the same. So there's essentially a utility model underneath, and on top, we can work with certain behavioral aspects of human behavior. So some customers are susceptible to price thresholds, for example, some are not. So for some, there's a large difference between $9.99 and $10. For others, it's much smaller. And these are things that are known, for example, from literature or from experiments. And these can also be included in the model that we're using. So you have the opportunity to be as realistic as possible. And I think that's a key insight, is that, and we're seeing that, and this is known across a large number of areas, that if your model becomes more realistic, then it becomes better and more precise in predictions. This happens in, like, for example, predicting weather changes that have massively increased in precision in the past decades. So always, if you get a more precise understanding of a phenomenon, it becomes better in the prediction, and then the model becomes better. And that's now possible because we have the computing power, and we have also strong methods coming from machine learning, for example. So I would say the hard part in the customer virtual customer model is creating these virtual customers. And we do this, for example, from available data like sales data, from studies like conjoint studies, panel studies, actual transaction data where you see that you made an offer to a certain type of customers and he or she accepted the offer, didn't accept the offer. All of these instances tell us something about the preferences and behavior of these customers. And in aggregate, we can deduce how preferences are distributed across customers. And with that, we're able to build a model that predicts future decisions. So for example, we can have these virtual customers. They have preferences in this example for different brands, maybe different car brands or soft drink brands. Here the low values, probably more soft drinks than cars. So this one has preferences, different preferences for brand A, B, preference for size, and maybe also for different sizes, and also has certain behavioral aspects that are relevant. And bringing these all together, we can look at a set of virtual customers, and when we show them different offers or products, they make decisions, pretty much as in the previous on an earlier slide we showed. And from these we can deduct what they will do, and if we change prices, for example, how some of them will change their purchasing decisions, some will not. Likewise, we can not only change prices, but we can change product attributes, so we can remove maybe a property from one of these products or change it. So any change that's possible in the real world can be also modeled with something like the virtual shopper technology, which makes it much more flexible and not just focused on price changes like price elasticity, for example. Yeah, and just to add to that, with a model like that, and again, if you've tried it, it's very difficult to align something like price elasticities with certain behavioral aspects. This is, of course, much easier if you give individual of these virtual shoppers certain behaviors. So, for example, power of free. Just if you want to look more into detail in that, we just have a weekly document that we're posting on LinkedIn, for example, on these different behavioral effects. If you're interested in, I think in the end we'll have a PDF document that we can also send around to anyone interested. But if we're, for example, taking something like the power of free, so the idea is that, or it has been shown in experiments, and also in one larger one that we conducted, that people are more likely to buy a product if they get something for free, like a free brochure here, or I don't know, if you have a phone contract in the first 6 months are free, that makes it much more likely that a person will buy that. And these effects, they can be included in the study like that, because some people tend to be irrational about their decisions. Then some people will just take, if you say first 6 months are free, you can compute the average price over the full term, maybe 24 months. Some will make a rational decision based on this discount, and some will just say, okay, get a lot for free, and they might end up paying more than they would for someone else, but still preferred because it's easier to go for that free attribute. So these things can all very easily be integrated into something like the virtual shopper technology, and then they are available for actual decision making and in one place, and you don't have to have like an elasticity model, and then on top of that some behavioral effects that is always very, very difficult to integrate with each other. So how well does it work? Here, I think we brought two examples that highlight the capabilities of this model. So this one here is based on a real example. It's anonymized. So in the real example, it wasn't different types of nuts, but something else that was sold. But the relative shares are the real ones. And you see that what's going on here is you have a set of these virtual shoppers, say a couple tens of thousands. And in 1 week, in week 1, they see these prices, and you have the walnut 700 and the peanut 1 kilogram in promotion. And therefore they buy, most of them or a large share of them buy the 2 promoted products. And in the second week, different products are promoted, and you see that the actual, so these are the blue bars are the actuals, and the pink line is the prediction by the virtual customer model, is that the sales volumes are massively different, and also the products that weren't in the promotion, so the 500 gram, for example, they also differ across, or the hazelnut 1 kilo. So they have different sales in these different periods. Also, their price didn't change, or nothing changed for them. But these changes came from the other products that around them that had a lower price, were promoted. So even if you don't change anything, your volumes might change, and this comes from these other products. And that's something that a model like this can very easily predict. And this allows you, once you know that the model is precise, you can also look at cases where you say, okay, we gave, was it $3.50 discount? Wouldn't it have been enough to just give $2 or $2.50 discount? So what's more profitable? And you have the options to look at these cases in very large detail. You can also ask yourself, what happens if we go from 700 maybe to 850 or 900 gram? How would that affect my sales, my profitability, and everything? And you have very easily the ability to look at all the details that are relevant, not just price, not just promotions, but everything integrated. And of course, it's easy to optimize the whole thing. So it might be that a different pack size is at first glance not profitable, but it becomes profitable because it aligns better with a promotion strategy. And I think, just to remind, it's important that these different purchasing behaviors come from the same set of virtual customers. So the same customers in 1 week make this decision, make these decisions, and in the other this. So this shows you that a model like that is capable of predicting sales and sales shares across the range of actual price differences that are available in the market. Just another, to wrap this up. So here in the first example, we looked at a portfolio within 1 period or within 2 periods. And when we look at individual products, as in this example, so we looked at a time frame of about 3 years here, and we see the actual units that were sold, the blue line and the pink line on top. This is what a model does. And where does this up and down come from? It comes, of course, from promotion. So this product was promoted in some weeks and not in other weeks. And the height here is largely influenced by what other products did. So if other products were also promoted in the same week, then this meant that the sales were lower than if this focus product here was promoted by itself. So you can get all of the interactions right, and you see here also for longer time periods that a model like this can be very accurate, and that helps you, for example, to optimize a promotion strategy over the year, and give you the option. And you can easily, because once it's in the machine, it's easy to look at a very large number of scenarios. So you can look at what happens if I have a promotion every 2nd week, every 3rd week, every 4th week, what type of product should be promoted together, and so on. So you have large flexibility in these models. And I think the topic for today is not just the virtual shopper model, but also how this might affect commercial management moving forward. And I think always if you have a new technology available, and that makes something that previously was expensive, like analyses, looking at getting customer insights. If something was very expensive previously because you had to hire a research agency and very slow, they had to go out, ask customers pretty much the same question each year. Also, often you get more or less the same answers. And so it takes a lot of time, it's expensive, and you replace it with something that actually has no real marginal cost. It doesn't make a difference if you ask a system like this one question, should I increase this price, or many millions, what's the optimal promotion strategy over the year, that you have immediately a large range of new opportunities in working with a system like that. So you can easily ask many more questions. For example, if you think you are not just in consumer goods, but let's have another example from, for example, the automotive industry, where it takes a long time from planning a new vehicle to actually going in production. And it's very difficult to do proper market research early on in the process. But with a system like this, based on available data from the previous model, for example, you can already assess every decision, what engine to put in the vehicle, what features to have in the base model or in the higher end models. You can always look at these questions from a commercial side from early on, and not just from an engineering or cost point of view, for example. So this offers a large range of new opportunities, and we're very eager and interested in understanding what these opportunities are, and where we can support customers with this solution. And I think it's not just in the pricing field, but if these solutions, and that's where the virtual customers are I think the important link, because they allow to integrate very different data sources and make the results readily available on a very high accuracy, that these topics can also be spread more easily across different segments or different departments in the company. So for example, from finance, it becomes much easier and quicker to get an assessment of how a cost increase, for example, impacts the business, and what's the best answer, for example, how to react to a cost increase, which many companies are facing right now, that are close to commodity prices. So I think many interesting things coming up. If you have any questions, we're very happy to discuss these now or after the webinar. If you want to contact us, very happy to get your view on these topics that we just touched briefly in this short webinar. But I think the intention for us was to give an overview on the topic, and give some food for thought moving forward, how new technology, I think this is what this is, and I'm very, very certain that this will be the future in commercial management pricing, what changes this might entail. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Ingo. Had one question come in, but do feel free to use the chat to ask any other questions that you may have. The question was around, so you referred to multiple inputs during the slides earlier about, so let me just read this, around things like different inputs you can use for the model. If you have limited data, what is the minimum kind of level of data you'd need to get this working? Yeah,
I wouldn't say that there's a true minimum. I would say what's very, very helpful is reliable data. So real sales data, for example, sellout data for a good amount of time, like somewhere between 1 to 3 years, where we see a certain number of changes in the past. So for example, price changes of your own products or competitor products or changes in a product portfolio. These are things that are key, but we can also work with any input that's typically used in pricing, ranging from studies like on certain pricing questions where you ask customers' willingness to pay. We can work with these, or even in cases where very little is available, we can work with expert judgment. Of course, with the caveat that also the results, it has to be clear that these results come from expert judgment and not from real data. But the benefit in these cases is that the tool links the inputs with an output, which is not trivial if you offer different products to different types of customers. And there, the tool can provide the additional insights of saying, okay, if you assume that customers are willing to pay this much for this property and this much for that, and they're in some way connected, then this is the best price, and that's the best portfolio if you look at more than one product that you should offer.
Great, thanks, Ingo. I'm conscious of time. I'll follow up with there was another question, but I will follow up afterwards. Have you got the next slide, Ingo, just talking about the next session we've got? Perfect. Thank you very much. So I hope you enjoyed the session today. Please do get in contact with us if there's any suggestions of particular topics that you'd like us to discuss as part of our series. And do follow us on LinkedIn. As Ingo mentioned, there's some great content that's going out at the moment talking about different aspects of pricing and revenue management. The next sessions we have are, some of you based in the UK be aware of these new HFSS regulations that are specifically impacting CPG, a massive hot topic at the moment around products that have high fat, sugar or salt content. So we've got a very specific webinar next, which will be on the 10th of September. From there, which is a much broader topic, is on pricing KPIs and what to measure. And that will be on the 1st of October, will be the next one from there. And as you can see, going forward, we've got innovation and disruption in CPG, and then how to succeed in your pricing project. But as I say, do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you, any feedback you've got on these sessions, and also any other suggestions of particular topics that are important to you that you'd like us to address. And do feel free to follow us on LinkedIn, and do get in touch with Ingo or myself if there's anything we could be helping you out with. Thank you all very much, and thank you, Ingo, for taking us through the presentation today. And we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good weekend.